document to OBN, and OBN can send a document back to you. And once you've done that and you're ready to exchange documents, then it's a case of you can add new trading partner relationships with folks that are on the platform, and then you can start exchanging documents. For the trading partners that you work with, you can give them your OBN account information so that when they register as a trading partner to yourself, which means that the request for that registration to be approved actually comes through to you, because obviously we don't know all of the suppliers that each Oracle customer work with, and it wouldn't make sense for us to be involved in the approval. So once you have your account, you are basically approving the onboarding of your own supply base. From a support perspective, Oracle customers go through the regular support channels. So you raise service requests for any issues. The non-Oracle trading partners that are connected to the platform, they can raise issues and get support and help directly on the platform itself. There is a contact us ticketing feature whereby they can submit a ticket with the information about the issues that they're happening, and that then comes through to our team who will help assist them. And I'm going to say, largely that tends to be, after the initial registration, there may well be help that organizations need just to get their connection up and running and make sure that they are sending documents with the right header information in payloads, and are able to receive documents and understand how it's been transmitted to them. But once organizations have got the connection up and running, then we tend to find that there is very little support required, because folks just enter into a steady state arrangement where they are electronically exchanging messages between the Oracle customer and the trading partners that they work with. Okay, so having covered what the platform does, I'll now go through some of the key enhancements that we've delivered in the recent releases. And I'll start with functionality that we've introduced in 2024. I'm not going to go through all of the details here. I will say that all of the information about these enhancements are contained in the release notes that are on the platform itself. So I would certainly commend folks to go read those documents, but I did want to sort of walk through some of the key highlights in terms of the things that we delivered into the 24C release. So as I say, just to walk through some of these, we do experience situations where trading partners on the platform need to update either their company information, or they may need to assign a new administrator because the previous administrator has left. They didn't have a second administrator on their account, and so they've, in a sense, lost access to the account. So we introduced some additional help options to make that process a little smoother for organizations, just because it happens on a regular enough basis that it made sense to do that. For those folks that are using the platform to support the punch out process, and again, I'll explain that in detail a little later in the session, we introduced an activity monitor. So it's now easier for organizations to monitor what sort of punch out activity is occurring through the platform, both for the Oracle customer and the suppliers that are using OBN as their punch out redirect process. There were a couple of additional enhancements, basically to provide additional flexibility to suppliers in terms of how the punch-out definitions are set up and maintained. One of these was we now allow suppliers to opt to receive a different identifier during the punch-out request process. So that they can choose one of the identifiers on the buyer's account. They don't have to use the default that will be used. So again, just giving the suppliers a little more flexibility in how they recognize which buying organization is executing a punch-out process. And then there's also a new type of punch-out definition that we have created that allows the details of that punch-out to be, the definition details to be split between both the buyer and the supplier, because in some instances a supplier will email credential information to a buying organization that provides them password information to be used during punch out. that customer can then add that into the punch out definition that's stored on OBN. And again, I'll go into some of these details when I look at the punch out capabilities. We also have a new privacy option so that Oracle customers that register onto the platform because they're interested in looking at which suppliers may be supported through the platform and whether they match to folks that are inside their own internal supplier master. We now have a privacy option so that those suppliers, those Oracle customers essentially can remain anonymous on the platform whilst they do that sort of investigation. And only if they want to start using the platform and exchanging documents would their account switch from being private into a public one, which means that they then become discoverable. Other suppliers, that they may already be doing business with may then want to reach out and say, hey, we should switch to an electronic relationship. We made some improvements to the notifications just so that folks have a little more control over the emails that they receive about activity on the platform itself. For personal information, we made some, some additional security improvements. All of the data that is stored on the platform is, done so in a secure manner. But for an extra level of security, we now actually encrypt any of the personal information that people provide as part of their account setup. That is now encrypted inside the database as well. So that's sort of, an additional layer of security just to look after people's information. And then we made some enhancements to some of the delivery methods that the platform uses. And a delivery method is, describes or defines how OBN will send content or documents to a particular trading partner's back-end system. And we've introduced a number of new delivery methods in recent releases, and we made some improvements in terms of how those function from a document retry perspective, where they may fail to get something delivered initially. So we did some enhancements in order that they can use the automated retry facilities. Earlier in the year, we did the 24A release, and I guess the key thing that came out in this release was really all of the integration that we have been working on for NetSuite customers. So this then brings, a very large constituency or potential constituency of all of the all of the organizations running the NetSuite solution, which I think globally is somewhere around about 38,000 customers. So we have integrated those, or now those organizations can integrate using Oracle Business Network. The solution is actually as part of an e-invoicing compliance package that NetSuite now offers. But this, greatly expands the reach of OBN in terms of the customers that Oracle supports. And of course, the more Oracle customers are on the platform that have engaged with, suppliers that they work with, it's more likely that those suppliers are also engaged with other Oracle customers. So the network effect, the speed that the network effect is working at is going to increase over the coming months and years, given that we now have all of these NetSuite customers added to the platform. So those were the things that we enhanced this year. I'm now just going to look back at some of the previous releases, because as I say, for those that are unfamiliar, I think it makes sense to go through some of these capabilities just to make sure that folks have a rounded understanding of what we've been doing with the platform. And the area I'm going to start with is the Redwood conversion, just because this was a significant change for the platform. So I'll just sort of walk through the details of what we managed to achieve in this area. And largely, it was just, a root and branch, I guess, rewrite of the entire user experience on the platform. As I say, or as I mentioned earlier, typically folks, they need to engage with the with OBN itself during the initial setup, the initial configuration. Less so for Oracle customers, because your connections are all standardized. For non-Oracle trading partners, they're going to spend a bit more time configuring stuff in the UI and all those sorts of things. But generally, once that's been done, people don't need to log into OBN on a regular basis, because it's an electronic document exchange platform. If the documents are being passed, there's no need for anybody to go look at anything, because there really isn't that much to see, in a sense. But we did go through, and convert the whole UI, just because it's all part of Oracle's I guess, UX strategy in terms of standardizing everything using the award-winning Redwood theme. So we converted the complete platform over to Redwood. So we replaced the old UI with a fully Redwoodized experience. And just, I guess, from a historical perspective, this happened or took place at the beginning of 2023. We ran for, I think it was, it was like a month. For a month, we had the option where folks could move backwards and forwards between the old and the new UI. And then in the middle of April 2023, we turned off the old UI and ensured that every time anybody logged in, they were only getting the new UI after that. As part of the change, we re-engineered or re-architected the navigation within the application. So per the Redwood standard, all of that navigation is done through the primary navigation at the bottom of the screen. So we altered the different elements of the account profile in order to make it slightly more logical. And give access, so it made it easier for folks to navigate around and find the information that they needed. As part of that, there were a bunch of other enhancements that we kind of delivered at the same time as the Redwood conversion, and I'll now walk through just a number of these just to highlight some of the changes. So as I mentioned earlier, the delivery methods that exist on the platform are, from an OBN perspective, these are the how does OBN transmit a document to the trading partner system? As I said, if you're an Oracle customer, a lot of these are standard. If you're a non-Oracle customer, then obviously this is, how do I send something to a non-Oracle system? One of the things that we did though was that, within the back-end system that a trading partner may be running, they also need to understand how do I send my documents to OBN. So on OBN, I can set up, how OBN sends stuff to me. In my system, I need to set up how my system sends stuff to OBN. So in order to help there, we actually split out the delivery method definitions into a receive from OBN and a send to OBN. So the receive from OBN is, that's where trading partners have to configure things. And for non-Oracle, that's where they set up using one of the various options, how OBN will send stuff to their system. For the send to OBN, as you can see in the screenshot there, these are basically informational because it's providing all of the endpoint details and other information that explain what would need to be set up in the trading partner's own system in order to transmit documents to OBN. The one exception there is the support that we added for OAuth, because as part of that, you may need to be able to edit token information that is generated in OBN, but then has to be copied into the backend system in order to be able to execute an OAuth connection onto OBN. So as I say, we split these out in order to separate them within the delivery method section. We also introduced the capability whereby you can have a delivery method that says, hey, all of the documents that need to be transmitted to me, here's how you send them. But we enhanced that so that you can now adjust this and you can set it up on a relationship by relationship basis. So you can have a general delivery method, and then you can say, this applies to all of the trading partners I'm working with, all of the documents I'm receiving, but for a specific trading partner or, Oracle customer that I'm working with, I want you to use a different delivery method. And that may mean, the delivery protocol that's being used or the format of the document that is being passed. So as I say, before this, the delivery method applied to everything for every customer. By extending this, you can now, or adjusting this by relationship, you can now have different delivery methods that are used for different customers. And this was largely to introduce flexibility for the non-Oracle trading partners who may have different ways that they want to receive things depending on who's sending stuff to them. And yeah, I guess just to mention from a transmission precedence perspective, you have general transmission settings, which will apply to everything unless there is a transmission setting for an individual business document, which will take precedence unless there is a specific setup for a given relationship, which would actually then override that one. So in a sense, there's a hierarchy of precedence around how things get transmitted. Now, the other thing that this enabled organizations to do on the Oracle customer side is that it means that you can now actually connect multiple test environments to the Oracle Business Network. So you can only ever connect one production instance to your OBN account, but you can now effectively have multiple test instances connected to OBN. And the way that this would work is that you're essentially saying, if I'm receiving a test document from a particular supplier, it goes into my QA instance, let's say. But if I'm receiving it from another supplier, then maybe it goes into my CRP instance. So this just provides people or organizations on the Oracle side with the flexibility to be able to have multiple test environments being used in conjunction with OBN. The next enhancement was just providing flexibility so that the organization that is receiving a document can change the from identifier that is used in the payload header so that it's using a different identifier value. So again, this was just providing some flexibility to the receiving trading partner so they can get a different identifier, because we sort of had situations where somebody may have an identifier that had certain characters in it that couldn't be processed in the receiving trading partner's system. So the sending trading partner could then add a new identifier, and the receiving trading partner could then opt to use that instead of the primary identifier for the message delivery. We introduced a couple of new account types. So there is now a monitor account that just allows you to differentiate the different people that may be signing into OBN and what they have access to. And then we also introduced a dedicated message account. And this is an account that has no access to the user interface. So it's basically just, some sign-on credentials, but the idea is that you would use this as the credential information that you put inside the sending system or the backend ERP system to send documents to OBN, because, this avoids the situation where, the credentials that are being used belong to administrator, the administrator leaves, so the account is inactivated, and then suddenly all of the document transmission from the backend system to OBN is failing because the account is no longer valid. So by having a dedicated message account, we can avoid those types of situations. As mentioned earlier, we introduced support for EDI, so we will allow for a standard form purchase order and a standard form invoice to be transmitted to a supplier or back from the supplier. Roadmap-wise, we intend to expand the set of documents that we support, and at some stage, we will introduce the ability for the supplier to use a mapper to adjust how they either receive the document or send the document so that they can cope with any peculiarities in their particular EDI implementation. As I mentioned earlier, we did introduce a bunch of new delivery methods. So these are all targeted at non-Oracle trading partners, because we know that they're running a variety of systems and need different capabilities in terms of how they can receive documents and also send those back into OBN. So as I say, introduce support for these in order to give those non-Oracle trading partners greater flexibility. In the punch out area, we did make some improvements so that it's easier for organizations to find punch out definitions. We, as I say, introduced a bunch of different filtering that really helps in that regard. And for the suppliers, we improved the way that they can set up their punch out listing so that they can include things like logos and stuff like that now, just to better publicize, the organization that is providing the punch out capability. And we also made one enhancement, which was to update the synchronization process or the add process that takes punch out information in OBN and adds that into the backend Oracle requisitioning system that a customer may be running, be that self-service procurement in Fusion or iProcurement in eBusiness Suite. We also had the change whereby a trading partner admin can now alter the primary contact on their own account. That's no longer a function for the OBN administrator to perform. And we also avoided the issue where an administrator who's the last administrator on an account could actually change their own role and therefore lose admin access to the account, because we had a number of situations where that occurred. So we added some checks to make sure that that's no longer possible. We also put in a page which allows people to look at routing detail information. So for any organization, once you've signed up to Oracle Business Network, you will configure which documents you wish to send, which you wish to receive. The routing detail page allows you now to look at, allows you to see information that will tell you if I'm configured to send a document and the trading partner that I'm connected to is not configured to receive it. Obviously that's going to be problematic, because if I send the document, it's going to error because the receiving trading partner can't accept that. And similarly, if I'm not configured to send something, but somebody is configured to receive it, I should know about that, just because then that might be something I might consider sending in the future. So the routing details helps you understand, for all of the relationships supported on the platform, whether there is compatibility or whether there are issues in terms of the different documents that can be exchanged. Okay, a couple of last features which were important. So we introduced in the 23A release, the partner match feature. So this allows a trading partner to take a list of the trading partners from their own backend system and basically upload it into the application in order for OBN to run a check and see which of those we think are on the platform. So it does this using a fuzzy match on the names that are provided. There's a template that you use to upload the details, and then you get back the results. We set a maximum of 500 records on this process. You can repeat the process, so if you have more than 500, but that seemed like a pretty large number, because just at a practical level, connecting hundreds of trading partners is a process that is certainly going to take some time. It's much more likely that you're going to target your highest volume, most significant suppliers. Therefore, those are probably running into the tens of trading partners, not the hundreds. But anyway, you can run the process repeatedly, but it's allowing you to find your own suppliers, or if you're a supplier, find other customers that you may be able to connect with through the platform. And we just, as part of that capability, we allow you to upload files as regularly as you want. There's an audit trail that maintains a history of all of that. And then I guess the last area, which is kind of key, is to talk about Punchout. A couple of things, or a number of things that we did. So OBN supports a process whereby instead of the Punchout definition and having to be set up inside, for an EBS customer, iProcurement, and all of that Punchout setup, maintained, the Punchout definition can be stored by the supplier themselves on OBN, and iProcurement can point to that Punchout definition each time one of your employees is conducting a Punchout session with that particular supplier. As far as the employee is concerned, they see no difference. There's a Punchout link in iProcurement. They click it. They then appear in the supplier's online web catalog. But what's happening behind the scenes is that the Punchout request to establish the Punchout session is going from iProcurement to OBN and saying, please take me to the supplier's Punchout, whichever supplier it is, take me to their Punchout website based on the definition the supplier has assigned to the buying organization on OBN. So as I say, this means that you as the e-Business Suite customer no longer have to maintain these definitions. The supplier sets them up and maintains them on your behalf on OBN. So that makes the setup and configuration of the Punchout much easier. We made some improvements so that suppliers can support multiple Punchout definitions, because some suppliers have a single definition that are used for any customer, and then other suppliers have individual definitions that are used for specific customers. So we now allow suppliers to configure those, whichever way they need. And I guess this graphic sort of really explains that process in terms of the traditional Model A, whereby all of the punch-out definition is being maintained by the Oracle customer, and punch-out Model B, where the Oracle customer no longer needs to do that because the supplier looks after their own punch-out definitions inside the OBN punch-out library. As I say, suppliers have, multiple options now in terms of how they can set up and can configure and assign those punch outs to the customers that request access to them. So overall, we think this is a much better means of supporting the punch out process. Certainly because for an Oracle customer, it means you can go to OBN and you can look at a list of all of the suppliers that have already got punch out definitions that have been set up, because they are then potentially punch outs that you as an organization can use. And just, a couple of things to note here. We also support both a production and a test mode definition. So for those suppliers that actually have a test punch out catalog, they can put that in the definitions, which is certainly useful from a testing perspective. And the supplier can actually designate punch outs as being public or hidden. And this is largely for those suppliers that have definitions that may be specific to individual customers, rather than actually listing those in their punch-out definition. They can hide those. They can still assign them to individual customers, but they're not exposed in the UI. So an Oracle customer would just request general access to a particular supplier. The supplier can then assign whichever hidden definition makes sense for that individual customer. Okay, so that really covered a lot of the functionality that we've introduced to OBN. What I'm going to spend a bit of time, or just a couple of minutes now, looking at is overall adoption levels for the platform. So certainly from an uptake perspective, we can continue to see, OBN's been around for a long time now, sort of 20 years. And we continue to see significant, certainly in the most recent years, we're seeing significant growth in terms of the number of trading partners that are registering and using the platform. There is now a very significant volume of, I'm going to say the sort of key trading partners that a lot of Oracle customers do business with on the platform. And so it's easier and easier to be able to use it to get connected to people that you may already be doing business with. Document volume wise, I'm going to say the chart shows that there was something that took place in 2020 that may have slowed business down. And I know that we all know what that is, but generally, we continue to see strong growth in the volume of documents that are being processed across the platform. And in terms of those documents, largely it's still purchase order outbound, payables invoice inbound, but we are starting to see more of an uptick in the use of acknowledgement documents and shipping notifications as various trading partners in particular relationships want to get more sophisticated about the documents that they're exchanging between each other. So as I say, just giving you a sense of what is going on in terms of how the platform's being used. And with that, I will wrap the session up. I'd like to thank you for joining. I hope you found the content informative. I would say that you can go to businessnetwork.oracle.com and you can access the page with all of the, if you click the Learn More link that's on the landing page, you can get to all of the release content documentation. And then there are all of the guides that you can use either as an Oracle customer or a trading partner to an Oracle customer in order to understand how you configure the platform, and then all of the information about the various document formats that are supported and sample payloads and stuff like that. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. And as I say, I hope you found that useful.